Hi, are you ready for a little fun on this Monday? Because I am, and I know that it's time for Monday is Fun Day. Today our stories are going to be about fairies. And that kind of takes us back to our original theme for the summer, which is imagine your story. When I thought about that, I thought about stories about castles and knights and princesses and gnomes and dwarfs and fairies. So that's what we're going to have our stories about today. Fairies. This one is called Gone with the Wand. It's by Margie Palatini with pictures by Brian Ajar, and it's published by Orchard Books, which is a division of Scholastic. Thanks for letting us use these. All right. Oh, there she is doing some magic. But she doesn't look very happy. Once upon a time, long, long ago, to be actual and completely factual, this fairy tale began about 3 months ago, last Thursday. If yours truly, the Tooth Fairy, second class, Edith P. Cuspid, hadn't seen it with my own 2 peepers, I wouldn't have believed it. But there she was all right. Yes, my dears, Bernice Sparklestein, once the best fairy godmother in the entire universe and beyond, was having a bad wand day. A very bad wand day. She wasn't even having luck stirring up a little tea for 2. Oh, perhaps you dipped when you should have dunked, I suggested. Oh, I'm Kapoofsky is what I am, cried Bernice. Edith, I think my wand is gone. I almost choked on my crumpet. That's a crumpet. What? Bernice Sparklestein? Gone with the wand? Oh, rubbish. Why, her wand was legendary. The stuff stories were made of. And she had the pictures to prove it. Oh, there she is with a dragon. Looks like Pinocchio. And a big bad wolf. Gone with the wand? Utter nonsense. I told Bernice to just get out there and give the wand another whirl. Shoulders back, feet forward, the big wind up, poof. She couldn't turn a frog into a prince. She only gave him a crown. Yes, well, perhaps she was even rustier than we both imagined. Frankly, it looked like she didn't even have enough bibbity left in her, salicadoo to even turn one more pumpkin into a coach. Oh yes, those glory fire-breathing dragon days were over all right. I should have gone into your line of work, Edith. Tooth fairies are always busy. I know everyone believes the nightlife is glamorous, I said, but all that tiptoeing is not easy on the feet. Well, I can tell you. Look at this bunion. Oh, ouch. Bernice winced at my big toe. Oh me, oh my. I don't think I could handle that sort of work, Edith. Whatever am I going to do now? A very good question. Of course, barely passing my wisdom tooth test myself, it was not one I was able to answer on very short notice like this. But then, don't you know, suddenly a decidedly divine idea popped into my old cranium. I never breathed a word of it before, but oh yes, I had my share of fairy experience before I landed in the tooth business. Dozens and dozens, well, just eons of doing this and that. My closets and trunks were filled with old uniforms and falderall. Maybe Bernice could try them on for size and see if any fit her fantasy. So we winged it right on over to my place. Fairy dusting. Oh, positively charming. You know, Bernice, everyone can use a little magic sprinkle now and then. Bernice tied on the apron and headed up, up and away. And she was back in 10 minutes. I think I'm allergic to dust. Ha 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 ha. I handed her a hanky, and we went back to the closet. Shoo! Oh, now here's a spectacular sparkler, I said, pulling out another little number from the closet. Snow fairy, creating snowflakes. So creative, my dear. Oh, you'll love it. Fancy schmancy, too, agreed Bernice, getting ready for takeoff number 2. She was back in 10 minutes. Brrr, my wings, iced up over buffalo. We brushed off the flakes and went back to the closet. Aha! This sugar plum look is totally marvelous, I said. And besides, no one can resist a candygram. I can tell you from experience, everyone's got a sweet tooth. So ta-ta and toodaloo! She was back in 5 hours and 10 minutes. I ate the merchandise, she confessed, bursting out of her sugar plums. My dears, it was not pretty. I'm a failure, Bernice said tearfully. Oh, pooh, I said with a hug. So you're not a duster, flaker, or big with bonbons. But don't you worry, we'll find a job that's perfect for you yet. Bernice wiped a tear. Really? But of course, I fibbed. Truthfully, what does a fairy godmother do when her wand is really gone? Who gives a wish to a wishmaker? Well, granted, I was only a plain old ordinary pillow tooth plucker, but I knew I had to think of something to help my best friend, and fast. So I thought and pondered and thought. And then I just pondered. I pondered so much, I was pooped. And before I know it, I had nodded off for 40 winks myself. And then, aha! I woke up with a snort, which is a bit embarrassing, some chin drool, and late for work, but with one wonderful dream of a plan, even if I do say so myself. Step 1, wake-up call. Bernice, I need your help tonight with the tooth taking. Do you mind? Bernice yawned. Huh? Check. Step 2, let the tisking begin. Edith, this child is untucked. Every night I see it, indeed. Arms poking out from under the covers here, toes sticking out from the blankets there. Double check. Step 3, more toes, more tisking. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Triple check. Well, by the time my shift ended, Bernice was extremely perturbed and her tongue very tired from all that tisking. My plan could not have been working better. Edith, she asked, don't moms and dads do bedtime tucking anymore? I dropped my bicuspid bag and rubbed my aching tippy toe. Well, of course they do, but after all, kids will be kids. They wiggle, squirm, they get untucked. Little tootsies get chilled. Tots wake up crying, moms and dads lose sleep, the Sandman's off schedule, and I'm working overtime. It's a most serious problem, all right. Yes, I can see that, said Bernice with a knowing nod. But can't something be done? Step 4, a little Edith B. Cuspid magic, not to mention superb acting on my part. I sighed a long, very long sigh. Yes, if only someone, somewhere had the answer to this terrible untucking situation. But who? What? Wow! Bernice began thinking, thinking, thinking. There was a glint in her twinkle, a flick in her flutter. A sparkle in Sparklestein was making a comeback. Check, 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 check. The very next morning, over a cup of cocoa, Bernice was all aflutter. Edith, she announced with the utmost confidence, what is needed here is a good night, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite, fairy godmother. Someone to make sure children get an extra bedtime tuck. What an absolutely incredibly marvelous idea! Oh, but Bernice, wait. That's no job for an ordinary everyday wand waver. Who can we ever get to do it? I asked. Bernice grinned. Edith, my first-class friend, I'm thinking who you've been thinking. Me. And there you have it, my dears. Like the story always goes, we all lived, can you say it with me? Happily ever after. But I bet you knew that already, didn't you? And that's the end. Oh, I'm so glad Bernice got another way to be helpful as a fairy. Now, did you ever think that fairies could be real? Who knows? I've never seen one. But where do you think they might live if they did? I'm thinking in a fairy house. And I think if you were looking for a fairy house, you'd look in the woods. So do you know what we're going to make today? We're going to make fairy house doors, and you can hide one outside. So I'm going to stop here. We'll go make our craft, and then we'll come back here for one more story. So I'll see you over at the craft table, okay? See ya. So let's make a fairy door that Edith or Bernice would be thrilled to have. This is what we're going to need, and I'll just move the camera down so you can see. Okay, I've covered our workspace, so I've got something here because we're going to do some painting. But first thing you're going to need 5 jumbo craft sticks and 3 popsicle sticks. Those are the thinner, smaller ones. I recommend having some masking tape, a pencil, some heavy-duty scissors. These are ones from my kitchen that I don't use anymore because I've got another pair, but we're going to use them to cut the popsicle sticks, the smaller ones. You're going to want some glue. You could use something heavy-duty because fairy doors will be outside, so you might want to use some Gorilla Glue. I'm actually going to use some hot glue, but only use this if you've got Mom and Dad there who will do the gluing for you. And I have my hot glue gun on a plate so that it won't melt the plastic table that I'm sitting at. You'd want some paint. This is just acrylic paint. The one that I did here, I used a gloss paint. I don't know that you can really tell that it's glossy, but any colors you want. The one I'm going to do today, I think I'm going to do one more muted. I wanted something bright for the one that I did as a sample, but I think I'm going to do something that would be a little bit more discreet if you saw it out in the forest. You can also use markers to color your craft sticks. This is one that I did, and that works fine. I would use not a washable marker because it will wash out if it's out in the elements outside. I also tried staining one using coffee because I thought that would be a natural color. And you can see it took a little bit of color, but not very much. Maybe if I let the coffee sit around for a few days. But you can find any kind of things that you want to use. You could use crayons because they're wax and they wouldn't wash off. So if you are using paint, you're going to want to have a paintbrush. And I also liked having a detail brush, one that's a little bit finer tip so I can make sure that as I'm going along the edges, I can get the paint in there because I didn't want any of the wood color to show through. And I think, oh, and then you're going to need something for a doorknob. Can you see what I use for a doorknob here? It's a button. And I thought the yellow went really nicely with the blue. So you can use any kind of buttons that you might have around. You could use any kind of tack. And if you didn't like the push pin color that you had, you could paint it. These are of a rather long point, so I might have to trim them off because I think it'll go right through the craft stick and be sticking out, and that wouldn't be very good. So I think that's all you're going to need, so let's get started. The first thing you're going to do is to line up your craft sticks. Now you might have noticed with my sample, I had them on a little bit of an arch. That way I figured it could sit along a root of a tree that might be coming out. But this time I think I'm just going to do them all even. So I'm going to line them up, and I can use my placemat that I've got for my table cover as a way to make sure that I've got them all even. And then this is where I recommend using the masking tape. Take the piece that's going to be a little bit narrower than the width of your sticks all across, and just put that down on top to hold them in place. And I did some at the top and some at the bottom, pushing these all together, and then turn them over like that. Then take 2 of your popsicle sticks and lay them on your door. And you can see that they stick off at the edge. We're going to be cutting them off. That's why you need the heavy-duty shears here. You're going to take your 3rd popsicle stick and lay that on top of the other 2, because that's going to be a crossbar. And I noticed in my sample I had it looking like a backward Z, and in the samples that I saw from someplace else, they had it make it look like a Z. So first of all, lay them down. Lay this one down so that it's going to stop in the middle of this one and stop in the middle of this one. So it does look like a Z. But to you, I'm not sure if that's a Z or a backward Z. Probably looks like a backward Z. So anyways, I'm making sure that both ends are sitting on the cross piece this way. And then I'm going to take that off. And with my pencil, I'm just going to mark where those are, so that when I glue them, I know that I've got them in a position where this stick will nest in between them. Then I'm going to hold them right in place, each of these sticks, and draw a line where the craft stick goes underneath, because that's the part I'm going to be trimming off. Same with the top one. Just draw a line like that. And then take those heavy-duty scissors and very carefully cut. And this is probably, again, something you might have mom or dad do, because it does take a little bit of muscle. And make sure when you're cutting that you're not around other people, because this little end, that's going to go flying. Do it slowly, and just like that. Do it with both of them. Okay, so I've got both of those done. I can set the scissors down. And I'm going to use the hot glue today just because I want this project to be set for you for showing the demonstration. If you're doing it at home and you use another kind of glue, you need to wait until it dries before you do any of the painting. But I'll get this. I'm letting it heat up. So I'm just going to draw a bead of glue up close to that line I drew, and then place this on there and just hold it in place for just a second or two until it sets. And once it's set, just be sure which way, yep. going to draw a bead of glue again across this one, very close to that pencil line, and press on the other one. Got a little trail of hot glue there that I don't want. And those two going across are what's going to make your door firm so it doesn't bend. Those are supports. You'd seen them on gates. All right. Then I'm going to take my third popsicle stick, lay it on there, and I'm going to draw a line where I see the bottom or inside edge of each of these cross pieces where it would intersect. So I'm going to draw that because I'm going to want to cut that part off. Same thing down here. Okay. So you can see that I'm going to cut off each end. And I recommend holding it by the end when you're cutting this time, and that way it won't splinter. But make sure your stick doesn't go flying too far. You don't want to have to go chasing it. There's my cross piece. It's going to fit right in there. You don't really need to draw a line because you're going to be sandwiching it right in there so that the top fits right under this cross piece, the bottom fits right on top of this cross piece. But if it helps you in where to put your glue, then it's a good idea to just draw a little line. And you're going to want to keep your hot glue, if you're using that, out because you will need it to put the button on. Otherwise, we'd be all done with it. So that's what my door looks like. And now I'm ready to paint it. So let's see here. I'm going to use lid from my plastic tub here. And I think I'm going to use this one. This is called Dark Taupe, and it's kind of a stone color. And I thought that would be very good for blending in. Now what you can do, because we're not using a lot of paint, you could use the top of your container to be your paint pot. But I think I'll put some in here so. And I always close that up when I'm finished pouring so that just in case it won't get all over everything. So let's take our door and just paint it. My idea in choosing this color is if I was a fairy and I didn't want everyone knowing where my house was, I would kind of like it to blend in with the tree where I live. So I thought this was a good color to blend in. And you can do both sides. I definitely recommend doing the tops of each of your sticks. See, I put a bunch of paint on when I'm getting close to that crossbar so that I can kind of scooch some of the paint underneath. But there's still some spots that I'm not able to reach doing that. So that's why I'll have the fine brush. I can just do some last minute detail work. Do the sides. So we'll get that other brush and just go along any of those areas that are tight for the wider brush to get into. You can see right there that I've got a little bit of white, or the stick, light stick color showing through. So it's a good idea to just turn your door every which way to make sure you've got it just the way you want it. You can always go back and add more color if you like. I've seen some doors where they've also added wreaths and windows. And then just before I say I'm finished, I like to just go over it once more so that all the paint is going in one direction. It's already drying quite well here. But I like all of the up and down pieces to have the brush strokes going up and down, and all of the cross pieces going the length of them. And there's my door. One thing I didn't mention that I have here is a bowl of water to put my paintbrushes in. It's just smart to clean up your brushes so that paint doesn't have a chance to dry in there. So when that's all dry, then I can decide what I want to do for a doorknob. And I've got some, as I said, I've got some different buttons here. I was thinking of this one, which is a kind of fancy metallic button. I thought that would be very discreet on there. Or a brown button. This one is a tortoiseshell one. Kind of like that too. And then, as I said, you could use a push pin, which would stick out a bit more. I'm just not sure. But I'm going to let that dry, and then I'll be all set with my fairy door. That's easy to make. One other thing you can do is, if you have more popsicle sticks, you can make a little directional sign. You could write your fairy's name on there with like a Sharpie marker and show directions like path, home, whatever. But I thought that would go nicely with it. So there's my fairy door. Can't wait to see what yours look like. And we'll go back and have our story now. So how did your fairy door turn out? I'm pretty happy with mine. I think next time I go out for a walk, I'm going to hide it along a path. And maybe a fairy will find it and use it for her own door. I'd love to see what your fairy doors look like. So send me a picture. Our second book is Freddie and the Fairy. It's by Julia Donaldson with illustrations by Karen George, and it's published by Macmillan. Now, one thing I've noticed about a lot of Julia Donaldson's books is she likes to rhyme. And rhyming is great, but in this story, words that sound alike cause a little bit of a problem. Freddie found a fairy tangled in a tree. "Help, I'm stuck," the fairy cried. So Freddie set her free. "Thank you," said the fairy. "My name is Bessie Bell. I'll grant you all your wishes, though I can't hear very well." Freddie thought, then mumbled, I wish I had a pet. Why, so you shall, said Bessie Bell, and conjured up a net. Rhymes with the word pet. I don't want fish, said Freddie. I'd rather have a dog. Hey, presto, said the fairy, and conjured up a frog. Does that rhyme with dog? It does. Let's try again, said Freddie. I wish I had a cat. Oh, that's easy, said the fairy, and conjured up a bat. I don't like bats, said Freddie, but what about a mouse? Lift up that stone, the fairy said, and Freddie found a louse. It's a kind of bug. That isn't right, said Freddie. Let's think. Perhaps a parrot. I'll do my best, said Bessie Bell, and conjured up a carrot. Freddie stamped his foot and said, This carrot has no beak. Forgive me, said the fairy, and a tear rolled down her cheek. Just then, from out of nowhere, appeared the fairy queen. She dried the fairy's eyes and asked, Whatever does this mean? It's Bessie Bell, said Freddie. She gets things wrong, he grumbled. I'm sorry, said the fairy, but that's because you mumbled. Now, Freddie, said the fairy queen. She sounded kind but stern. Before you wish again, there are 3 rules for you to learn. Rule 1, you mustn't mumble. Rule 2, don't turn away. The fairy needs to see your lips to read the words you say. Rule 3, don't cover up your mouth. She can't see through your hand. Obey these 3 gold rules and then I'm sure she'll understand. So Freddie learned the 3 gold rules and now he speaks quite clearly and everything he wishes for comes true. Or very nearly. Can you guess what he really wanted? Did you see the picture? Caterpillar. And what did he get? A gorilla. Well, those 3 rules are kind of important even for us, especially if you're going to be going back to school because you'll probably be wearing a mask, right? So when you have a mask, you have to do a lot of the things that Freddie was told. You have to talk clearly, don't mumble, don't turn away because your friends and your teacher won't be able to hear you. So make sure that you practice wearing your mask before it's time to go back to school. And just a reminder, this is our last Monday is Funday for quite a while. We usually do this program just during the summer, so I hope you've enjoyed it. If you missed any of our sessions, I'm going to take this off for now. You can go back and watch them on Facebook, and we hope we'll see you soon. Remember, the library's open, and keep reading. Thanks for watching. Bye now.